Hi, greetings, greetings, favored ones. This is Monday with Jesus, and Tom and Amelia on the side. And so this week our story is the Annunciation from Luke 2 and Luke 1. That's a good start. So Amelia's going to tell the story.
All right. Here's a story. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a town in Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin engaged to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David. And the name of the virgin was Mary. He came to her and he said, "Greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you." Mary was perplexed. She was greatly troubled at these words and pondered what sort of greeting this might be. So the angel said to her, "Don't be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. For you will conceive in your womb and give birth to a son, and you will name him Jesus. He will be great. He will be called Son of the Most High. And the Lord God will give to him the throne of his ancestor David. He will rule over the house of Jacob forever. Of his kingdom, there will be no end." But Mary said to the angel Gabriel, "How can this be? I have not known a man." And the angel said to her, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. And therefore, the child to be born will be called Holy, the Son of God. And look, even now, your cousin Elizabeth, in her old age, has herself conceived and will give birth to a son. And this is the 6th month of her who was called barren. For nothing is impossible with God." And then Mary said, "Here I am, a servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word." And then the angel departed. That's our story.
Right.
Okay. All right, some questions. Well, first of all, do you have any comments on the translation or anything? Or I don't know, did I leave anything out or mess something up that you want to alert our audience to?
No, that was good. The translation thing, you did, what I think was right, that rather than it being translated, Mary saying, "How can this be, for I'm a virgin," which is the way that the NRSV translates it. But that is not the word that is there. Virgin is used earlier to describe her and her name and so on. But and that Greek word is Parthenos. But that word is not used here. It is, "I have not known a man." And so as far as I'm concerned, you did that right.
Well, that's always good to hear. Great, thank you. Okay, well, talk a little bit about, if you would, the marriage customs of the day, this, engagement and marriage, and why this would be a big issue for Mary.
Yeah, well, the general practice was that a girl would be betrothed to an older young man when she was, pre-pubescent. So before she was, having a period, so on, she would be betrothed. And then when she was 14, 15, sometimes as early as 13, she would be married to her betrothed, to the one whom she was engaged. And that engagement was basically a contract between the families. And so the man at that point would be probably a teenager. And so generally the man would be 19 or 20, and the woman would be 13, 14, 15.
Yeah, so we would think of that as being a girl, but in that culture and in those days when people didn't live so long, I guess she was considered a woman of childbearing age.
As soon as she was able to bear children, she was a woman.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so the angel comes to Mary, and her response is to be, I think the NRSV says perplexed, but I'm thinking that's stronger than that. She was, and you probably told me this at one point, that really the word is more like, disturbed, greatly distressed. Why would that be the case? And then also, why was she pondering what the angel said to her?
Yeah, well, the Greek word is diatosaro, and a form of that word is used to describe Zechariah when he sees the angel, and that's usually translated, he saw the angel standing at the right side of the altar of incense, and he was terrified. And so this is a version of that same word. It's the only use of this word in the New Testament, and is then highly distinctive. And so, perplexed or greatly confused is a good translation, but it has the connotations of terror. So you try to translate it as greatly or something, but it's that, she was terrified.
And so why was she terrified?
Puzzled.
I mean, why would she be terrified? I mean, angels are,
well, and pondering what this greeting might be. Well, the reason for that is pretty simple. In the ancient world, there were stories about Zeus and the gods coming and finding a young woman and variously raping her, or having sex without her consent.
Yeah, that would be rape.
Yeah, that'd be rape. And so those stories were in the background.
Okay.
So when the storyteller said she was, terrified and pondered what this greeting might be, they'd know why she was anxious. It was because there was a good possibility, if it was a divine figure, that he'd rape her.
Well, are there also other stories about virgins floating around in those days?
Well, there are, yes. There were stories about virgin births. There's a story of Plato, there's a story of Alexander the Great, and of Augustus, Caesar. And in the case of Alexander and Augustus, there were legends that had formed that in each case, the woman was alone. In the case of Augustus, his mother was in the temple of Apollo, and that a snake came and wrapped around the woman, and then that she had a mark and then conceived. And so those two figures, Alexander and Augustus, were called Son of God. And so their being the Son of God was because the legend was that the mother had been impregnated by the god. And so, so this is a familiar motif. This story is far more developed and I don't know, is more human in terms of insight into the character of Mary and of this interchange. In the case of the stories of Augustus and Alexander, the mother doesn't say anything. There's no relationship. It just happens.
And I don't think that we would lend much historical credibility to those stories, but the church has certainly wrapped its heart around the notion of Jesus's mother having been a virgin.
Right.
So, I mean, do we think that's
Virgin Mary?
Yeah, right. Do we think that that's historically probable? Does it matter whether that's historically probable to our faith?
Well, my professor, Raymond Brown, a great New Testament scholar, wrote a book on the stories of Jesus' birth and of the resurrection, in which he asked that question. And his conclusion was that while there is plenty of evidence to indicate that there are continuities between this story and legends that were developed in order to explain the identity of a person like Alexander or Augustus. But that in this case, in terms of all the evidence that he could identify, both from the study of the traditions, that there was something irregular about Jesus' birth. We can't determine historically what it was, but it was not anything that would be called a normal conception and birth. So exactly what happened, we do not know. It clearly has the character of legend because of the connections between this and stories of a son of God. But in this case, in terms of the historical question of historical facticity, it's unclear.
Right. So the angel comes, makes this annunciation, as we call it, an announcement to Mary about her conceiving and giving birth to a son who's going to be called the Son of God. She's really nervous about both the greeting and then the news that she hears. But it's almost like she reflects on that. She listens, she's questioned, she reflects on that, and then in the end, she says, "Here I am, a servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word." How do you hear that last line saying? Because it's often been kind of presented, and Mary is often presented as very, very submissive to whatever the Lord's going to say, that she hasn't really thought about it. So I wonder how you hear that and how you would tell that, Tom, when you're telling her.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The stories of the women associated with Jesus' birth. In Matthew's genealogy, there are 4 women who are identified as part of the genealogy. Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, and Bathsheba. In the first 3 cases, all of them were women who were, if nothing else, they were not submissive. And they took charge of their situation and variously seduced, used their sexuality in order to aggressively become part of the family of Israel. And they are part of Jesus' genealogy. They are named as women who were, in effect, Jesus' mothers, grandmothers. And my sense of Mary in this story is that she is in continuity with those mothers, that she is affirming this as an acceptance of her vocation and an affirmation of that, so that I do not hear this as submissive so much as affirmative and as, all right, I am a servant of the Lord, let it be, as you have said.
Yeah, great.
So a strong young woman, and that is how Mary's character has often been understood in the tradition also. There are an amazing number of institutions and orders. The Marianist order is a major monastic community. So
Right
like
here
the
in Dayton.
University of Dayton here is established by Marianists.
Right.
And the greatest collection of Mary material is here in Dayton at the UD library. So Mary is one who has inspired thousands of people and has transformed in significant ways the role, the picture, the, I don't know, style of women.
It sounds like you might
probably
be
the most single.
into my last question, which is about the implication of this story in terms of issues of justice today.
Yeah, well, this is a story that tells against the entire industry of pornography that uses young women to make money and makes videos of the rape of young women as a way of making huge amounts of money. It is the single pornography and the perversion of young women is the single biggest internet industry. It is absolutely incredible the amount of this that is on the internet. And I'm not even going to name the companies because I don't want to give them any publicity.
Well, tell us how this story addresses that issue. But also, I want you to talk a little more. I interrupted you, but you were getting there that the story also kind of affirms the agency of women in a significant way. Right.
Well, the tradition was that women were submissive to the will of men. In this case, Mary is treated by the angel with respect. And she responds with strength. So she is not raped. She is not a victim. She chooses to affirm this affirmation of her as an honored figure. And so what the association of this story with is the honoring of women, the honoring of young women, and of their being then treated with dignity and honor. And it is an exact story against the way in which the stories of thousands of young women now are being told, who are being humiliated, subjected to rape, and then having that videotaped and shown all over the world. It is an absolute scandal and a moral affront what is happening in the country now. And this story tells absolutely against that use of young women.
Well, we need that. We need that for sure. So thank you, Tom. Any final words before we sign off here?
Well, my last thought about this is that this is one of the most influential stories in human history. I remember going into the Cathedral of Maria Maggiore in Rome which is just down the street from the Vatican. And the whole cathedral, which was built in the 4th century, is dedicated to Mary. So the pictures on the ceiling, behind the altar, all that are all pictures of Mary. Sometimes with Jesus on her lap, sometimes with her holding him. But the focus is Mary. And Mary has had an enormous impact on things. So she's really an important figure.
All right, I'm going to sign off while you answer your phone.
Yeah.
Have a good week, everybody. Thank you.